So, Bitcoin and the technology behind it, called blockchain, is a fundamentally revolutionary idea. It's made us rethink the recording and transfer of value. I'm going to say this slowly. So you can transfer it without an intermediary or without a central authority, peer-to-peer. That transforms industry. And what I want to talk about is that in transformation, to have something like that, you need a revolutionary idea. From that, you can then get evolutionary ideas. And as long as you never stop questioning, you can take this to the next level. And if you look at the questions that have been asked from that basic thing of Bitcoin, you've now got this whole industry based around what they call decentralized finance, these decentralized networks. So you've got this incredible opportunity in terms of what's there. And what I want to focus on is that you've got this transformation with evolution, never stop questioning, but there's also some fundamental principles that will persist or will be constant, and you have to respect them. And that's what traditional finance is looking at. So, how did I get into blockchain? Well, despite my looks, my deceptively young looks, I am one of the TradFi guys. Right. I did start as a manufacturing engineer, and what I wanted to come back to is, here's the analogy on this transformation. Originally, when you were in production, you had a single power source, a water wheel, a windmill, or a steam engine. Electricity actually allowed power to be decentralized, and suddenly you had the opportunity for a production line. Actually, it was Mr. Olds of Oldsmobile that had invented the production line, but he had cars that stayed still and the people moved along. It was Henry Ford that put the conveyor belt on. But although that increased the efficiency, made it faster, higher quality, the fundamental principles that persisted was you still had to need a good design of the car. You still needed to have a good process with the production. So looking at that, I then took my production experience and got into banking operations. Banking operations is often what people don't know about, which is all the settling of the transactions, all the finance, banking, international investments around the world. Although you often see the front office and all the trading and all the market data, somebody has to settle it and make it all work. That's what I got involved with, institutional infrastructure. So I was the right guy to look at blockchain, because it's an infrastructure. And my first experience was in 2014. I'm called in as the operations expert to assess an investment pitch. And these guys are saying they're going to transform. Normally trade settled at that time 3 days. It's called T+3. These guys were saying T+3 seconds. So I looked at it and I'm going, this blockchain looks like unicorns and pixie dust. And they've read the random walk on Wall Street. These guys don't know how to settle trades. So I rejected, unfortunately, that investment. I'm sorry for those guys. You get fast forward a year later, I'm asked to look into blockchain in 2015. And this is the year Ethereum, Hyperledger Fabric, Auth Recorder, Digital Asset Holdings all went live. So I read the Bitcoin white paper, and I read all their white papers. And I said, these guys still don't know. No, I didn't. I said, wow. I said, this is incredible. I said, you've got the chance of a 24/7 market, settlements, no longer constrained. You can settle any asset. Think about that, because every time you buy a different product, an equity, a government bond, a mortgage-backed security, you're on different infrastructures. This is a universal infrastructure, and it's quick. Now, we still have to remember some of the fundamentals that persist, and this is the challenge. You've got the accounting. You've got to account for them. And the blockchains are actually state change logs. Beyond what you have to do with the accounting, you have to worry about the capacity. The institutional financial world is high capacity, large scale. You also have to worry about interoperability, because you've got to be flexible enough to deal with all the types of products and situations you do. So this led to me looking into what are the real requirements of this industry to make this work. So again, coming back to the basics, rather than a state change log, which blockchains are, why wouldn't you put accounting in the ledger? Because you are required. Now, do I have any crypto guys in the audience? Like, have you paid your CPAs a lot of money this year to work out your tax liability? Because you need accounting to do that, but you're translating it. So you're going from one to the other. But with accounting, you also have reconcilable, and I know I'm making finance sound really interesting right now, but you have reconcilable and archivable periods rather than this perpetual state change logs, like your bank and brokerage statements. Why don't we have that? What about most of your finance, and certainly on the institutional side, is not about what you have and what you've transferred. It's what you owe. It's what's owed to you. And those are called payable receivables. Now, in crypto land, they're in smart contracts. But that's an algorithm. You want to put those on your on-chain, on your ledger as payables and receivables. Otherwise, you can't finance, you can't net. Imagine your credit card statement tells you everything you spent, but can't tell you what you owe. That's without a payable receivable. So we need those. But more importantly, and this is the interesting thing about this digital world right now, is if you want to take deposits and transmit money, you need a license, a banking license. And the banks require you to have the proper accounting to do it. So you actually look at what's happening. Cryptocurrencies are not money. These stable coins, if you've heard of them, they're not money, so they're allowed to be transferred. But if you really want to transfer money, you've got to be a licensed bank. And that's one of the challenges. Now, how can I explain banking? I hate to denigrate one of our national institutions, but Jimmy Stewart in A Wonderful Life. Remember the scene where everyone wants their money? Think about it. He convinced everybody that he didn't have their money because he had given it to somebody else. Think about that. He didn't have their money because he'd given it to somebody else. Now, if you go to a bank and say, can you please explain that to me? Because if you're giving it to somebody else, why don't they have it? Because they didn't have their money either. All right? So now that's something for you to think about, but that's the way it is. So when we're looking at what we really need, we need the accounting, we need the flexibility around the products and everything else that needs to be done. We need to be able to synchronize now in real time. And this is another thing that's out there. You have to have a blockchain validated or done through consensus, but there's actually data models that can allow you to share data and synchronize on the data alone. It's called conflict-free replicating data types, but that's something we've got to build. So that's what we're working on L4S, and we have our platform Tapestry X to really build that technology. And I know the crypto DeFi world is great, it's very innovative, I'm very impressed by it, but it does operate outside the regulatory and requirements that the banking and finance need, and we're trying to build that future. So the other side of it, I don't know, although this is a little bit self-serving, I voluntarily work for a not-for-profit called the Government Blockchain Association, and we have developed a blockchain model. So if you don't have the questions, if you want to know how to assess a blockchain solution, we've actually created a way you can assess it against 11 elements, and there's even supplements for finance, for voting, for healthcare, and we've developed these standards so that people can really look at a blockchain. It's not about finding what's the best blockchain, it's about finding the blockchain that meets your use case requirements. So we've done that. So just to sum up, I've given you a concept of what is transformation with evolution and never stop questioning. But you've got to respect the fundamentals that persist and are constant. I've given you a description very quickly at the end of a means to assess blockchain solutions. And also the direction in which a new tool for traditional finance may be able to help, should be able to help, or will be able to help. But I'll leave you here, as we're apparently in a bank, former bank, and in New York City. that I use one of my favorite quotes from one of the more famous New Yorkers, Yogi Berra, and that is, "The future ain't what it used to be." Thank you.